Today, the building complex that you see behind me is a common sight to motorists driving along the northern end of the Clara Barton Parkway. But what goes on within these large, odd-shaped buildings is a mystery to most county residents. It's now called the Carter Rock Division of the Naval Surface Warfare Center, but for many years it was known as the David Taylor Model Basin. Because of the important work that is done here at this Naval Surface Warfare Center site, many say this is where the fleet begins. Putting it very simply, before new Navy ships are built, scale models are tested here in oversized water tanks that simulate all kinds of weather and oceanographic conditions. It is an idea that was embraced and promoted by a young naval officer in the late 1800s. The David Taylor Model Basin is actually the second such testing site built by the U.S. Navy. The first one was built in 1896 at a cost of $100,000. A young naval constructor, David W. Taylor, is the brilliant visionary behind this first experimental model basin. Tom Waring, press spokesperson for Carter Rock, explains.
It was his character, personality, and perseverance, and brilliance, in my opinion, that enabled him to persuade senior naval officers, admirals, and other folks, political appointees, and eventually Congress, that they would give him the money to personally design and build the original experimental model basin, which was located at the Washington, D.C. Navy Yard.
This first basin was 470 feet long. David Taylor designed it and oversaw its construction. Once completed, Rear Admiral Taylor supervised the facility until his retirement in 1923. During that time, more than 1,000 naval designs were developed and tested. But by 1929, the Navy Yard facility became inadequate in size and structural design. So the search was on to find a new site. Dana Wagner, curator of Navy Museum models, tells what they were looking for.
They examined over 20 plots of land, generally in the Washington area. They settled on what was originally 107 acres out here in Carter Rock. The place was specifically of interest to the Navy because of its geological formations. The bedrock here is very close to the surface of the earth, and bedrock was what they wanted to build the new model basin upon so that it would never change, and as I understand it, it actually has not.
In 1936, the land sold for $60,000, and in the midst of the Great Depression, a 1,200-foot concrete and steel tow tank, as well as 3 administrative buildings, were constructed. It is said that Congress appropriated the funds because the facility was to be named after Admiral Taylor. David Taylor never worked here. He suffered a serious stroke by that time. However, he was present at the dedication.
In November of 1939, the building was just about complete. It was close enough, and they had a scare that they believed Admiral Taylor was going to die, so they hurried up and they had a dedication out here and brought him out in a wheelchair in November of 1939, and he was able to see the place, probably the one and only time he ever saw it, and he died 8 months later.
The first tests were conducted here only 2 weeks prior to the start of World War II. That resulted in a flurry of design and testing activities.
Well, the Navy, from the beginning, tested all of its ships here during World War II, so they were responsible for the new designs during the war. They did a lot of work on landing ships, which were particularly important during the war, especially considering that they intended to invade Japan. So there's a lot of quick, intensive work done on landing ships, landing craft. There was a new type of ship design during the war, all intended for basically one-time use, which was the big invasion of Japan. That was all done here.
Over the years, this facility has grown in leaps and bounds. The original basin was extended to 3,000 feet in 1946. More state-of-the-art testing sites were added on the land surrounding the basin. The facility's name has changed several times. However, the original model basin still retains the name David Taylor. Model testing is still an essential component of naval development. Today, the models correct, confirm, and improve on contemporary computer designs.
I believe that this organization contains an essential characteristic of carefully moving into the future without making expensive mistakes. Our function is to help chart a safe course into the future for the Navy and other paying sponsors. And we provide objective analysis, not fraught with political overtones. When we provide our results, we're not worried that somebody might not like them or might like them too much. So we provide an objective reference for any concept that is within our mission to perform.